The dress was the only thing I had left. It sounds cliché, I know, but it was true. My mother, bless her heart, passed away from cancer just last year, and before I could even fully process the grief, my stepmother, Samantha, offered to helpfully take my mother's wedding dress to the dry cleaners. I should have known then. I'll never forget the phone call I received a few days later. "Hi everyone, I'm Emily, and the story I'm about to tell you is one that still makes my blood boil. It's a story of family, loss, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of revenge." Before I get into it, I would love to know where you're all listening from. Please take a second and drop a comment below. I'm so curious to hear where you are tuning in from and what your experiences with family dynamics are. My mother, Sarah, was a beautiful woman, inside and out. She had this way about her that made everyone feel loved and important. When she married my father, Mark, almost 30 years ago, she wore a stunning ivory gown. It was simple, yet elegant, with delicate lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. After she passed, my father gave me the dress, knowing how much it would mean to me. I'm planning my own wedding to my fiancé, David, and I imagined myself walking down the aisle in that very same dress, feeling like my mum was right there with me. Samantha, on the other hand, is complicated. She came into our lives a few years after my mum's passing. She's always been impeccably dressed, perfectly coiffed and obsessed with appearances. I never felt like she truly understood our family, our history, or the deep bond my father and I shared with my mother. She always seemed to be competing, subtly trying to erase my mother's presence from our lives. So, when Samantha offered to take the dress to her specialist dry cleaner, a little voice in my head screamed danger. But I tried to be reasonable. Maybe she was trying to be nice, to finally connect with me. I reluctantly agreed, handing over the precious garment bag with a knot of unease in my stomach. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Samantha, her voice laced with false distress. "Emily, honey, I have the most terrible news. I was bringing the dress home, and I accidentally spilled a glass of red wine all over it. I am so sorry." My heart plummeted. Red wine on an ivory wedding dress. It was practically irreparable. I rushed over to their house, my hands shaking, my mind racing. There it was, spread across the pristine fabric, a hideous crimson stain. Oh, Emily, I feel just awful. I was so clumsy. I promise I'll pay to have it cleaned.
"The best cleaners, I swear," Samantha wailed, dabbing at the stain with a useless cloth. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes were too bright, her apology too theatrical. Something felt off, deeply off. "It's okay, Samantha." "Accidents happen," I said, my voice flat, betraying none of the turmoil raging inside me. But inside, I knew. This wasn't an accident. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with proving my suspicions. I couldn't shake the feeling that Samantha had intentionally ruined the dress. I started subtly investigating, snooping around when she wasn't home. It felt awful, intrusive, but I couldn't let it go. The dress was more than just fabric and lace. It was a piece of my mother, a symbol of her love. One afternoon, while Samantha was at her weekly book club meeting, I decided to focus on her recent purchases.
I knew she frequently used her Target app, so I logged into her account on the family iPad, using the password I had overheard her saying on the phone to customer support a few weeks earlier. Scrolling through her purchase history, I found it. The day before the accident, she had bought a specific bottle of red wine, a cheap, heavily pigmented Cabernet Sauvignon known for its staining properties. But that wasn't the worst of it. She had also purchased a bottle of stain remover, but not the kind for delicate fabrics. This was industrial strength, meant for carpets and upholstery. It was clear she knew exactly what she was doing. Rage, hot and blinding, consumed me. This wasn't just a clumsy mistake, it was a calculated act of malice.
She had intentionally ruined my mother's dress, a dress that meant the world to me. Why? Was it jealousy? A desire to erase my mother's memory? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. I considered confronting her, screaming, yelling, making a scene. But that wouldn't bring back the dress. It wouldn't undo the pain she had inflicted. I needed something more subtle, something more satisfying. Samantha and my father had been planning their anniversary party for months. They decided to throw a lavish celebration at our family's beach house, a beautiful property right on the water that had been in my family for generations. Samantha, of course, was in charge of all the details, meticulously planning every aspect of the event, from the floral arrangements to the catering menu. She'd even bought a ridiculously expensive white dress for the occasion. That's when the idea struck me. Our beach house has a temperamental septic system. It's old, prone to backups, and notoriously unreliable. It had been acting up for weeks. My father kept putting off the repairs, saying he'd get to it after the party. He figured we could manage for a few days. I knew better. I casually mentioned to Samantha how excited I was for the party, how much I loved her dress, and how wonderful it was that she was taking care of all the arrangements. I even offered to help with the final preparations. She beamed, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. The day of the party dawned bright and sunny. Guests arrived, dressed in their finest attire, sipping champagne and mingling on the deck overlooking the ocean. Samantha, resplendent in her pristine white dress, flitted around, basking in the attention and praise. Everything was perfect, too perfect. As the party reached its peak, with music playing, laughter filling the air, and everyone thoroughly enjoying themselves, I put my plan into motion.
I strategically started flushing toilets in all 3 bathrooms, one after the other. I turned on all the sinks full blast. I even convinced a few of the younger guests to take extra long showers after they spilled chocolate on their shirts. It didn't take long. First, there was a gurgling sound, followed by a foul odor that quickly permeated the air. People started wrinkling their noses, looking around in confusion. Then, it happened. The toilets began to overflow. Not just with water, but with... well, you can imagine. The sinks gurgled and sputtered, spewing forth a disgusting mixture of sewage and other things. The lower level of the beach house was quickly flooded with the vile concoction. Panic erupted. Guests screamed, grabbing their skirts and trousers, trying to escape the rising tide of filth. The smell was unbearable, gagging and nauseating. And then there was Samantha.
Her face was a mask of horror as she stared down at her beautiful white dress, now stained and dripping with sewage. Her perfect hair was plastered to her forehead, and the air around her seemed to shimmer with pure, unadulterated rage. "Emily, what have you done?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with hysteria. I looked at her, my face an innocent mask. "I don't know what you're talking about, Samantha. It seems like the septic system failed." How embarrassing. The look in her eyes could have killed. The party was, of course, ruined. Guests fled in disgust, leaving behind a scene of utter chaos. The caterers packed up their food, the musicians stopped playing, and the air was filled with the sounds of retching and cursing. My father was furious. Not at Samantha, not for what she did to my mother's dress, but at me. "Emily, what did you do? This is our family home. You've ruined it." "I didn't do anything, Dad. It was an accident, just like the wine on Mom's dress," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Samantha, still dripping with sewage, launched into a tirade, accusing me of deliberately sabotaging the party. "You did this on purpose. You're jealous of me. You're a horrible, vindictive person." "Oh, Samantha, please, don't be dramatic," I said, feigning concern. "Maybe you should focus on cleaning yourself up before you start making accusations."
She threatened to sue me, to call the police, to make my life a living hell. I just smiled sweetly and offered her a towel. The next few days were a nightmare. The beach house was a disaster zone. The septic system required extensive repairs, costing thousands of dollars. My father was beside himself, alternating between yelling at me and comforting Samantha. Samantha did, in fact, consult with a lawyer. She wanted to sue me for damages, for emotional distress, for I don't even know what else. But the lawyer quickly dismissed her case, explaining that proving I intentionally caused the septic system to fail would be nearly impossible. The legal threat fizzled out, but the emotional fallout lingered. The family was fractured. My aunt, my mother's sister, stopped speaking to my father, disgusted by his continued support of Samantha. My cousins distanced themselves, refusing to attend family gatherings where Samantha might be present. I felt a pang of guilt. I hadn't intended to cause so much collateral damage, but then I remembered my mother's dress ruined and stained beyond repair, and the guilt faded. David, my fiancé, was incredibly supportive throughout the whole ordeal. He understood my anger, my grief, and my need for revenge. He helped me navigate the family drama and reminded me that I wasn't alone. And now, I am finally planning my wedding. I am having a dress made from scratch using pictures from my mother's wedding day. It will be beautiful and personal and, most importantly, untouched by Samantha's malice. As for Samantha, she still lives in the house with my father. The atmosphere is tense, to say the least. They tiptoe around each other, avoiding eye contact and conversation. I know my father regrets what happened. He regrets the way the beach house incident divided the family. He even apologized to me, a weak, mumbled apology, but an apology nonetheless. I have started looking at property listings for beach houses further away. If I find something suitable, maybe my father and I can start a new chapter, leaving Samantha behind.
I still haven't completely forgiven Samantha for what she did, and I am not sure I ever will. The septic system incident was probably not the best way to handle things, and there were definitely better ways I could have responded. I am not particularly proud of my actions, but sometimes when you're backed into a corner, revenge feels like the only option. It is definitely not a story that I recommend repeating. Even though Samantha no longer attends family get-togethers, there are still tense holidays, strained family dynamics, and an elephant in the room that no one wants to address. And that's the story of how I ruined my stepmother's anniversary party and perhaps my family. But some people break families, while others rebuild them from the ashes. And that's exactly what I intend to do. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more such stories.